Actually, can you bang the gavel? Hi, everyone. Welcome. If anyone wants to make a public comment, the sign-up sheet's just on the table at the front. You have 1 more minute to sign up for the public comment if you so wish. Thank you. Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin the meeting whenever you wish.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome, everybody, to our special council meeting. Today is June 11th. Before we begin, just to open the meeting, to remind folks who have been here before or those who are new that the meeting itself is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. And council, as you're all aware, when it's time for you to speak, please raise your hand and make sure that your microphone is on so that folks can hear you online in the ethers. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we've got a full house here. We've got a significant issue with significant interest, and I'm glad to see that. As part of this not being part of our regular council meeting that we normally have on Tuesdays, we've called this as a special council meeting so that we can pay specific attention to the issue and the reports that are before us. I normally special meetings don't allow for public comments, just based on the structure of our procedural bylaw. So we have opened up public comments. We do have, per our procedural bylaw, 5 minutes per commenter. And it looks like there's been a few people who have registered to speak. We're here to listen. We want to make sure that those who want to speak have that opportunity to speak. However, in the essence of time, if it takes you less than 5 minutes, it means that we'll be able to perhaps accommodate additional voices. And I do ask that those in the chambers to please be respectful. That's council as well as those in the gallery, to one another. We're here to listen to the comments that are bringing forward or that are coming forward. Following the public comments, the public comment period will be closed, and then we'll go into the report presentations, at which time it's council's time to take the information that we've heard tonight and the information that we've researched and learned up until this point and make decisions and discuss and deliberate that. And during that time, the gallery is not able to provide comment. So I ask that you be aware of that. So we will now go through the roll call. We have Deputy Mayor Nelson. Present. Councillor Watt. Present. Councillor Johnston. Councillor Landsman. Present. And of course myself, Heather Watson. We have a number of staff who are joining us today that will be introduced at the time when they're presenting. So with a quorum of council in attendance, I will call this special council meeting to order, and the time is 5:04 p.m. As mentioned, the sole purpose of this special council meeting is to discuss the Joint Public Works Fire Hall project and the procurement process. So we will start the meeting with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And Council, the agenda, of course, was circulated last week and has been before you for a number of days. I haven't seen any disclosure of pecuniary interest come forward at this point, but this would be the moment to declare that if there is. Seeing nothing, just looking for an adoption of the agenda. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Landsman, all in favor? And that carries. So we are going to start this afternoon's meeting with a presentation, which is the history of the Joint Public Works Fire Hall building project. And CAO Davis will take us through that presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just bear with us for a moment while we load the presentation on the screen, please. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, staff, members of the public, both in the gallery today and online. This is a significant and important meeting of council dedicated to discussion and decision on a proposed Public Works Fire Hall redevelopment project. Before we move forward with any consideration on current procurement in the process, staff thought it best to provide some background on this project as it spans a number of years, terms of council, and over a decade from its conception right through to tonight's decision. Today's presentation is going to provide milestones in the development of this project, and I hope to provide some further context as to the slides as we go through the presentation. I apologize in advance. This is a presentation heavy on words and light on graphics. Next slide, please. So we identified as staff that January 2015 is really when we started speaking, or staff started speaking in earnest about the concept of replacing the Public Works facility and the fire hall in Warsaw. But I'd like to identify that leading up to 2015, as I understand it, each department independently began to recognize that their current facilities were near or at the end of their useful life and in desperate need of major investment, and they started going through that process. And as I was reminded today by a long-standing member of this council, those discussions actually, while we didn't make formal presentations until 2016, at the end of 2015, we started to already identify the need to invest in our infrastructure and start to put some money aside for doing that, just that. Internal conversations certainly looked and identified potential for cost savings, what the requirements were, and that culminated in staff coming forward to council on February 1st, 2016 with a presentation related to the idea of replacing our Public Works facility and our fire hall in Warsaw with a singular facility. And I want to note that while it sounds like we're talking about replacing two buildings with one building, that is actually not in fact the case. We were talking about replacing three structures into one, amalgamating them into one building. Public Works has two structures on their property, and the goal was to build one facility for all. That was moved on February 1st through Resolution 53, 2016. And I note the significance, the historic significance, because that's the first time we had brought forward a formal resolution that identified this building specifically. And for historical purposes, that was moved by Councillor Watt in 2016 and seconded by Councillor Landsman, who 10 years later still are with us at council. As we move forward through the direction that was provided as part of that resolution is that we started to do some work. We deferred some cost of funding and we looked ambitiously at deferring construction until 2018. Staff identified as we went through that process and we started to do some of that work. In June, we came back to council because staff had identified operational and structural issues related to the current public works and fire hall buildings. Council was very interested in understanding what those were and were invited actually to have a special council meeting on July 8th, 2016, where they toured the building. And at the culmination of that meeting and in August, we met again. They gave direction to staff to assemble some costs, better understand our service volumes, and prepare other pertinent information so that they could, and then they gave direction as early as August 18th, 2016 to develop a shovel-ready project to move this forward. Next slide, please. In September, work was done to begin to develop the shovel-ready project for a new joint public works fire hall in Warsaw. It included retaining a design firm, seeking funding to do the study and design work, identifying land that was necessary. And I would note that on November 16th of 2016, the township purchased property right adjacent to the site from Edwards Sand and Gravel. That is done by bylaw 2016-60. And the township has owned 7 to 8 acres of land that is vacant, save for the driveway or the original portion of the entrance into the Edwards Pit, as it's called in this community, for more than a decade. Spot for the sole purpose of building a joint public works fire hall on that site, and we own it outright. Further work that was done through 2016 through 2017, we started to look at things like potential funding for the project. And council directed, we had originally looked at funding. Some of the only areas where we could find funding for that project was through FCM and their interest in green initiatives. Council gave specific direction in 2017 not to pursue this type of funding. However, they asked us to pursue all funding opportunities and further applications were developed, submitted, but unsuccessful. December 2017, as we started to look at the budget, we moved that project to the 25-year capital forecast in the 2018 budget. And capital forecast is an interesting piece because at the time, that's what it was called. Now today, we call this the asset management plan. And so I say that to suggest that as early as 2018, we identified this as a significant asset of the township and one that needed its specific attention. Slide, please. In 2018, we started to seek updates on project, look for funding opportunities. Council then in March, after we sort of had as part of that work in 2018, in January, the cost of the project was estimated at that time as $3 million, with direction to continue to find funding unsuccessfully. In March 2018, the following resolution was presented to council, and it's on the screen. And realistically, just to summarize what that means, council has acknowledged the significance of this burden. They also recognize that the funding for the project of this nature is very difficult to get. And I appreciate that probably a lot of members of the public are asking themselves, why can't we get grant funding? I hear that mantra all the time from members of council and from members in our community. And what I will say to that is these services that, so realistically what we're looking to do is to replace current buildings that house both fire and public works services. These services are not discretionary in our community, and the province of Ontario recognizes this. They are part of the nature of the work that we generally do in this community, And because they aren't discretionary, we tend to not be eligible, or there tends to not be a lot of funding that's attached to these kinds of things. Whereas, and I readily acknowledge that we were able to receive $1 million of funding, if I remind council, to support the replacement of the arena floor at the Douro Community Center. And the reason that that funding was available, because recreation is a discretionary service that we provide in our community, meaning that we can opt to not have a community center if we so desired, or a hockey rink if we didn't want one. I'm not suggesting that we don't. I recognize that this is a township that has a rich history with ice hockey, and that is not what I'm trying to suggest. But what I am saying is that we don't have the opportunity to determine whether we plow our roads, or grade our roads, or offer fire services to our residents once we've decided to do so. Slide, please. This motion was a call to action, or I considered a call to action, that motion a call to action milestone, and a direction to investigate alternative opportunities. And I think that's important. In March 2018, further, we started to look at, or we recognized that the cost of building one building was an expensive cost, and we started to look at alternative opportunities to study whether we looked at, what that could look like differently. Could we take the investigation into alternatives, contemplated upgrades necessary to stay in the current locations of each of the facilities? We did a bunch of that work. We came back to council in March of 2019, and we drafted with a draft report that sort of provided the outcome of all of those items. As well, we were given direction to consider alternatives for the storage of public works equipment in particular. We looked at various types of ways to store our trucks and facilities. And we did a bunch of work was done by a third-party consultant that provided a report to council. In October of 2019, staff continued all the way through this piece. Staff have continued to search or research or pursue any funding opportunity that might be available unsuccessfully. And council hears in October of 2019, or late summer of 2019, the outcomes of the investigations, and continue to move forward. At that point, they continue or give direction to staff to move forward with a single joint public works fire hall at the same time. Slide, please. March 2020, so in early 2020, late 2019, early 2020, two significant things happened in this township. First and foremost, the long-standing chief administrative officer, David Clifford, who was the champion of this potential project, retired from after 35 years of municipal service. Almost instantaneously after Mr. Clifford's retirement, we had COVID-19 come to our community. These two things resulted in the project being put on hold while this community and the council sought a new chief administrative officer, and while we dealt with the effects of the pandemic in our community. Towards the end of 2021, as we were starting to come out of the pandemic, certainly, and we had a new CAO in place who was briefed and up to speed on what was going on and became the champion of this project. We started to include, we got a direction from council to include, we reintroduced this project, and we were given direction from council to include it in the 2022 budget process. And as late as the 2022 budget, the first financial model and estimation determines that the cost of this project is now $12 million. Work on the projects continued through 2023. Slide, please. An update was presented as late as or in spring of 2023 that by the project consultant, and an outcome was to move forward with construction drawings in February of 2024 to get this project so that we could go to market. I would note that that's at that time in 2024, the project stalled yet again. It stalled at that time because the chief administrative officer who was hired in 2020 moved on to a different community, and council paused this program while they went through recruitment again. While we were going through that process, we did, while we weren't developing construction-ready drawings, we did other pre-developmental work that was necessary. And then they brought a new CAO on, myself, in late 2024, and we reinitiated this project. I will note personally that when I interviewed for this job in late summer of 2024, I had the opportunity, as often people do when they're going through their interview process. For those of you that are unaware of how chief administrative officers are hired in the province of Ontario, oftentimes we're interviewed not by a single individual, but by a panel. And that panel for the chief administrative officer is always council. So I had the opportunity to be interviewed by the entirety of council, and I share with you that going through that process, as one does in a traditional interview, when you get into the later rounds, oftentimes they ask us a bunch of questions, and I have the opportunity to, or the candidates have the opportunity to ask questions of the members of council. That's a confidential process, I recognize, although I feel like I'm entitled to share some of that process. And what I am sharing today is that of a series of questions that I did ask this council before I decided to come and work here, one of the questions I asked of every member of council independently in my interview process is, what's your number one priority for this township? And I will say at the dais today, the only councillor that did not answer my question because she was not on council at that time is Sheila Landsman. However, all the other members of council, including Councillor Vervoort, previous Councillor Vervoort, all identified this project as their number one priority for the rest of this term of council. I considered that when I got hired into this job, a mandate to move this project forward. Next slide, please. (2025). So as we started to get into this type of work, we had a refined budget model. And on June 3rd, 2025, we came forward to council as we recognized that this project was starting to gain some traction in terms of work that was necessarily to be done. A bunch of the research and reports that were necessary to support site plan work were becoming complete. And we recognized that based on the volume of work that is on staff, we needed project management on the file. And so I would note that we increased, so we had direction from council to hire Cambium Engineering and Engage Engineering, both local Peterborough firms, quite frankly, some of them local Douro-Dummer firms, to do work on this project. I went to council to increase the scope of work for both of those local firms to ensure that we had good project managers on this file that knew our community. Engage Engineer was hired to provide civil engineering services, and they are responsible for developing the site plan as required. Cambium was to provide the technical support on the site plan work, and Engage Engineering also remains as our civil engineers on the project. Cambium was brought on board to develop a concept for going to the market. And the concept that they brought forward to us was a design build feature. And really what that meant is that it was to take a look at the site. We recognized the amount of space that we needed, and we had made through a series of decisions from 2016 to 2025, an understanding of those things that were needed in the building. We had done preliminary designs. Much of that work was supported through FCM's, some early grants that we received on just the design features related to this project. Council, but the issue remains is that when you design a project and you spend 10 years going from design to construction drawings, what you start to recognize is that there are changes in various things. Fire codes and the Fire Protection Act has changed dramatically. The Ontario Building Code has changed dramatically, and what we recognized was that there was substantial amount of work to be done in the design period or the final designs and construction as we move towards construction. And so we opted to develop a procurement process or request for tender that prepared a design build, that turned this into a design build project, taking work already completed and using it to inform the tender and overall project. In February 2026, this was contemplated. So this project was contemplated in the budget of this year. We presented, as we always do over the last 4 years, the funding model required. And in February 2026, the request for tender was released to the general public. That progress, so, there's some of the information related to that. 66% prospective suppliers registered, which showcased a lot of interest in our project. We had an on-site meeting on March 9th, 2026, where 25 firms were in attendance. Standard questions, the standard question period continued on. Thank you. Sorry. The standard question period resulted in 99 questions, which is common in big projects of this nature. We also received requests to extend the deadline from the construction community, and we consented to do that. We moved the deadline forward 2 weeks from April 3rd to April 17th. The request for tender closed on April 17th with 10 submissions. Those submissions have been reviewed by the project managers and an award recommendation has been provided to the township. I will say that an initial meeting has been held with our most compliant bid to confirm that they remain interested, and recognizing that because we changed the timeline and some of the time it took, we didn't anticipate as competitive a bid process or that we would receive as many as 10 responses. It took longer for our project managers and staff to review those bids. And so we needed some extra time to get us to this meeting today. Part of my meeting, the meeting I've held with the most compliant bidder, was I wanted to confirm that they remained interested in the project, and they most certainly are. And I also requested that new timelines come forward should council tonight decide to award this to the most compliant bidder. My goal would be to hit the ground running with a new set of timelines that we would report at an upcoming council meeting. I also want to identify that in May, we received direction. We've received a number of delegations around this matter over certainly the last 6 months. And in May, we received a delegation from Richard Taylor and Edward Sand and Gravel, our neighbors on the project, requesting a meeting held between staff and themselves and Peterborough County. And I'm confirming, and I have a report that confirms that later on in this evening's agenda, that a without prejudice meeting has been held between the county and its representatives. The report summarizes at a high level the outcome of that meeting. I think if you'll slide, please. Just to summarize, this project has been ongoing for more than 11 years. It has been discussed when I did the math and looked at all the different resolutions, it's been discussed at more than 30 different council meetings that have generated, or we've generated approximately 30 different resolutions over those 11 years. I would also like to note that as part of the CAO's update at Committee of the Whole, I've talked to or spoken to this matter on a number of occasions and have received questions from members of council throughout the entire tenure of my employment with this organization. It's been included in township budgets as early now, as I understand, as 2016, but certainly as early as 2017, formally related to this project itself. Council recognized as early as 2018 that third-party funding was going to be unlikely to occur or very difficult, and that didn't necessarily mean that we stopped looking. There has been no federal, provincial, or municipal grant dollars or funding opportunities identified or offered throughout the entire pre-development period. And we provided significant financial attention, including financial modeling in every budget from 21 to 26. The project certainly has moved forward and much more significantly since we brought project managers on board in 2025. And the township, I believe, is in position to award a design build RFT today to Task Force Engineering, should they choose to do so. Happy to take your comments to any members of council.
Thank you, CAO Davis, for your presentation. So up next, we do have the public comment period. Council, just at a high level, we'll have lots of opportunity, of course, to ask questions of staff as we get into it as well. But Councillor Johnson?
Through the chair, maybe you should let the audience know in case they gotta go to the washroom, that they don't have to go outside. Maybe let them know where the washroom is.
Certainly, just as a housekeeping matter, so I'm horrible with directions. Go this way, go that way. To the right and to the right. Thank you. Down the hall, there are washrooms there for you. Are there any questions of our CAO on the presentation so far before we go into the public comment period? Okay, seeing nothing. So as stated at the beginning of the meeting, we did take registrations for public comments. We will go through those in order of those who have registered. There is 5 minutes per speaker. This isn't a situation where we're going to be looking to enter into debate. We want to hear what you have to say and then keep things moving so that the rest of the speakers can also have something to say. If you are able to trim your time down below 5 minutes, we certainly would invite that so that we can ensure all voices are heard. And there is a timer on the screen as well that we'll keep track of. So we will start with the first registered speaker, Marilyn Turton, please. And while you're making your way up there, I don't know if anybody has given a quick lesson on the microphone, but the talk button, oh, great, perfect. Okay, great. So we'll just ask you to turn the microphone on, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Turton. I've been a member of this community since June of 1989. I ran a successful business in Lakefield, Millages Plumbing, for all of that 32 years until I retired in 2020. One of the things that I had to do as a business owner was make sure at the end of each year, I submitted to the government my financials. So one of the problems I'm finding with this entire issue, I'm not against the fire hall, trust me. What I'm finding is that I don't understand how a community like this can be 2 or 2.5 years behind in submitting their financials. If the person that's responsible for that is still working for this community, they should be fired. Simple situation. Or if you've hired a company to do that job, they should be hired, or they should be fired. You should have somebody that can do the job. That's why we hired you, because council and staff in this township work for all of us. We pay your wages with our tax dollars, and you contribute too, but you were hired by us to be our employees, and we need you to do a better job. Simple as that. I know we've got currently we have 4 fire halls in the community and probably at least 4 fire trucks. With this new buzz that's going on about the size of the new fire hall, I haven't seen any drawings. I looked on the website and couldn't come up with any drawings for it. So I'm wondering, do we have to buy new fire trucks? And if we do, are they included in that $12 million? Are we planning on hiring permanent workers to be firemen? Or are we still going to depend on all of those amazing fire responders that we have now that are volunteers? Do we need to have 5 or 6 offices in these buildings for the public works and for the fire department? Or can some of those people be housed administrative in this building so that we can cut down some of the cost? Is the building going to be made in bricks and mortar, or is it going to be made in siding? You know, can we do it a little less expensively by doing it a different way? So have those kind of things been looked at? I'm just looking at the costs. You know, when I ran my business, I had to look at the costs before I could go out and buy a new truck for my plumber or a new boat for the guy that had to work on the lake. We had to abide by all the government regulations, and we did 32 years of it. And it was a business that when I closed it, it was 102 years old. So I'm pretty proud that we did a good job. I'm not looking like I'm very proud of this township right now. And that's my 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Next on the registered list is Carl Moher, please. And Mr. Moher, you've got the microphone down, I'm sure. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Watson and Council and the gallery. Thanks for the opportunity to bring before Council a number of comments regarding this huge project for the estimated 7,500 residents of Douro-Dummer. For those who do not know me, I'm Carl Moher, a former Douro-Dummer councillor and a lifelong property owner in Douro-Dummer. First of all, I agree we need the joint building. We need it yesterday for all the reasons already published. It's too bad that the majority of the previous council did not support the advancement of the building 7 years ago in 2019, when the price was about half the current estimate of 11.1 million just to start. The price at that time was 5,963,000. Also, I find it puzzling as to why the building profile drawing for such a huge project was not on tonight's published agenda for all the ratepayers to view. Yesterday, or in the last couple of days, I talked to 3 councillors, and I was surprised that they hadn't seen the profile for the building. And they're probably going to make a decision tonight on this 11.1 million just to start decision without even a drawing of what they're going to get for that amount of money. Almost appears that the township is trying to hide the size of the building. The huge size of the palace building from ratepayers who are going to have to pay for such a structure. Surely not the case. I feel we must trim the starting cost by a few million. My suggestions are as follows. I see 19 heated indoor truck bays on the building profile drawing that I received from CIO Davis 2 days ago. Assuming 6 heated bays for the fire trucks and maybe 3 heated bays for service, which have to be inside, leaves almost 10 heated bays for work trucks. The huge building size appears to be somewhat of somebody's legacy. To reduce the building costs, why do we not consider inside heated bays for works vehicles that could be housed outside under a truck port with IT programming, synchronized with employee schedules, or cell phone direction on callouts in the event of for engine heaters to start when low temperature prevail. Like the city of Peterborough, a population of 80,000, where their works trucks are parked outside under truck ports with programmed engine heaters during winter conditions. Our population is only 7,500, and the estimated Douro-Dummer population is very low growth. And I'd like to make a suggestion that even Drain Brothers trucks are parked almost outside. They do similar work that we do. Other factors, note the Cambrian engineering report where you recommend task force engineering be given to project. But page 2 has a full page of factors limiting the liability, which basically deflects total project risk all back to this township. And they probably collected a good fee for making that decision. Are you prepared to accept this risk transfer back to you? When I raised my concerns with the high price of CAO a few days ago, he said that the township would probably go back to task force engineering, asking for better prices. Most of us experienced in profitable private sector businesses over the years know that the answer to such a question would be more than likely result in very minimal reduction and nil reduction in most cases. The leadership direction for such a price reduction for this huge building with starting price of 11.1 million must take place at the Douro-Dummer Council table and not with the task force engineering contractor. And I'm surprised too that there aren't any option A and B. What if this isn't fit the township? Is there option A and B that we could go to? Is there any consideration? Thank you for listening to me. I believe I'm less than 5 minutes, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mower. The public comment period doesn't allow for us to ask questions, but I appreciate you availing yourself for that. Moving down the list, we have Donovan Brinklow, who has registered to speak. It's the purple button.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Donovan Brinklow. Many are well aware of who I am. I am the president of the Douro-Dummer Firefighters Association, and I've proudly served this community as a firefighter for over nearly 18 years. Tonight, I am here to express my strong support for the proposed joint Public Works and Fire Hall project. I understand that this is a very significant investment, and I recognize council's decision that the financial impact on our taxpayers. As taxpayers ourselves, firefighters understand these concerns. We also pay those taxes. However, I ask that we look beyond the price tag and consider what the project truly represents. This is not simply a new building. This is an investment in public safety. It is an investment in the health and well-being of our firefighters, public works staff, and ultimately the residents we serve. Our current fire hall has served this community for many years, but it is no longer meeting the needs of a modern fire emergency service. The building itself is aging increasingly difficult, or is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. During times in the winter, we struggle with inadequate heat. In the summer, there's no air conditioning, making the facility very uncomfortable and challenging to work in and train in. These are daily reminders that the facility has reached its limits and what it was designed originally to do. The fact that today's firefighters' equipment has surpassed the capacity of this building and the current trucks serving this township are a lot larger than what the hall was originally built to house. Our floor drainage system does not function properly. Water accumulates in the drainage area, and we're forced to use a sub pump to remove that water from the area so the floor doesn't flood. There's also concerns regarding air quality in the station. Exhaust from the apparatus bay can be circulated through the furnace into other parts of the building. Firefighters shouldn't be exposed to the diesel exhaust fumes, contaminants, and such simply by occupying the station that they work from. There is also important to understand this project is much more than just a single building. The Warsaw station is the busiest station in our department. It represents the highest volume of calls, the largest geographical area within the township we cover. It occupies a central location within the township to service the entire township. This project is not about one station receiving an upgrade. This project strengthens the whole entire fire service. It improves our ability to serve the residents through the township. And when we invest in a station that serves as a central hub for operations, we're investing in the effectiveness, the safety, and the future of our entire department. Today's firefighters face many hazards that many never actually see. After a structure fire, our gear contains hundreds of toxic substances and carcinogens. Research has shown that these contaminants can be absorbed through the skin and increase the risk of occupational cancers. Cancer is one of our most leading causes of line of duty deaths among firefighters. Yet, our current facility does not provide appropriate space for contaminated gear to be isolated, cleaned, or dried, or safely off-gas after incidents. There are no shower facilities available for firefighters after returning from emergency incidents. These are not luxuries. These are modern health and safety requirements. Every firefighter who responds to a call accepts a certain level of risk. We understand that. We willingly step forward when our community needs us, but we should not be exposed to additional risks simply because the facility we work from is outdated. When the pager goes off at 2 a.m, firefighters don't ask what political decisions were made, what budgets were debated, or what challenges exist. We simply respond. We leave our families, our beds, our jobs, our personal lives behind to help complete strangers on some of the most worst days of their lives. We do it because we believe in serving this community. Tonight, I'm asking council to demonstrate the same commitment to the people who serve this township. The question before council is not simply whether we can afford the building to build this facility. The question is whether we can not to, or if we can afford not to. What is the cost of delayed emergency services because of inadequate infrastructure? What is the cost of continued exposure to preventable health hazards? And ultimately, what is the cost of health and the lives of our firefighters who have dedicated themselves to protecting this community? I'm not standing here tonight asking them for something for myself. I'm standing here asking for the firefighters who serve beside me today and for those who will serve this township long after my career is over.
Mr. Brinklow, I'm sorry, you're at time.
Okay.
Thank you. Unless you can wrap it up in 10 seconds.
Well, tonight, I respectfully ask that you call, that you also, council, you answer the call for us.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Okay, folks, if we could keep the applause down so we can move forward. Our next registered speaker is Michael Corcus. Oh, it was already on.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Looking at this project, being on the department for over 20 years now, there's a lot of discussion that we've just had with regards to the timeline of this project and how long it's gone on and the cost that we've gone through to delay this project. As Carl had mentioned, they have skyrocketed. And as we potentially discuss delaying this project longer, it's not going to get any cheaper. It's not going to be any easier. This building is not a building that we're going to use for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The likelihood of the use of this building is going to be probably 50 years or greater. The discussion about the construction of this building is interesting in the fact that although building codes have evolved and we have maybe experienced it on the residential side, construction of structures like this require much more vast infrastructure. We're not going to these structures in the middle of a sunny day like this. We're going to them right after the Dureco ice storm. These buildings have to be bomb-proof. They're not something that is inexpensive to do. It costs a lot of money to get it done. I look at other townships in our area, similar size. You look at Otonabee, you look at Trent Lakes, similar tax bases, and they've done this. I look at Otonabee, every single fire hall in the last 15 years has been reconstructed. I haven't seen the backlash on something like this. The fact that this is a design and build, similar to when we go through the tendering process of fire trucks, we put our specifications forward and what has to be met, and then the plans are designed and fulfilled from there. We have to be very cautious in how we specify everything, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of cost associated with it. The size of this building is extremely crucial because of the fact that we are bringing in multiple structures into one. We don't want to build something that's small where we're going to be in 10 years going, we need to build an addition. I look at the fact of when we built this building here, we were bursting at the seams likely within a few years of coming into it. We need to look at this as a long-term strategy to work behind all the members of the community. It's not something that, like I said, is going to be a short time frame. We need classrooms. The education that we have to go through to learn and be able to provide the services to this community is not something that we take lightly, for one. And in all honesty, we don't have the room to do it sufficiently now. So when we talk about the room that we need to just go to a call might take a little bit of space, but for us to learn, for us to stay safe, for all the equipment that is required, which we are getting grants for to bring in equipment. We just got a significant number of equipment through grants. That all takes space, and it takes a lot of departments to work together to be able to work through it. When we talk about the plow trucks, I know there was discussion about having it parked under a coverall and that. Hydraulics don't work very well in winter. I can tell you, I've seen many trucks on the side of the road because it is cold. So if we leave those trucks, are we going to start accounting for turning those vehicles over sooner and spending 750,000 on a truck in half the time that we are now because we're putting more strain on these vehicles? I ask council to think of this as a long-term solution, not a short-term stopgap. Yes, there might be some costs that we can reduce, but we all have, as a community, we need to look at it strategically and look at what this will be for generations, not just for right now. It is something that I'm assuming we can amortize over many years. And as a township, I believe we have done very well. One thing I will say is, as a transparency piece, in trying to find the information on these reports, find very difficult. I love to, as many members here, understand what is going on behind the scenes, and finding that information is crucial. I'm very passionate about this project because I've been on the department for many years, and I think it should go forward. I would encourage more transparency across the board and having access to that information easier. If I spend an hour going through the website to try and find the information, I can imagine how much struggles other people are having. But I encourage council to look at this, not maybe just for this term or maybe for the next term, because there's another election coming, but this is for our community for possibly the next 50 to 100 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Next on our registered list is Mr. Ballmer.
My concerns here are not so much the building, it's the funding. We have no up-to-date financial statements, and I need to know where these statements are. And I don't know who's going to point this out to me. And it is absolutely necessary to have these statements in order to sign a contract, a legal contract, to take this project on. Now, this is all I really have to say. Without these financial statements, you have no authority to do this project. And that's, I don't need 5 minutes to speak to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ballmer. And our last registered speaker is Adrian Vandenbroek. Mr. Vandenbroek?
Thanks, council, for allowing us to speak. I'm a resident of Douro-Dummer. Haven't been for very long. I'm a new guy, 5 years maybe, but the little bit I've been attending council meetings, it has come up. Yeah, the words transparency and in my terms of problem solving. Like okay, yeah, you've been at this for a long time and it's obviously needed, but let's bear down and problem solve. The thing with, it's come up in council about the Edwards, they had their lawyer in here a couple times, and I just heard now that there is a report on it. Good. I hope that just those things have been resolved. Like, if you can't fix that little bit of stuff, and that, from what I understand from our citizens, those are good residents, and I hope they get treated well, or a problem is resolved. If things like that can't be figured out, what's going to happen when other problems come up? And what I'm hearing a lot about too is transparency, and it's hard to ask these questions. We don't have facts that are in the financial stuff as well. So. And the trade that I worked in, it's kind of like your other shift, you kind of put things in order, set them up for success instead of working blindly. And there's obviously a need for this, and it's, yeah, I have personal, you guys saved my life, and we need it to work well, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Vandenbroek. Okay, so per our posted procedure, that is all that we have for the registered speakers. Mr. Leahy, you can, just please, if I may, for a moment before you take the lectern. So we did have a posted process about allowing people to speak for 5 minutes, needing to register before the start of the meeting. So you know, it's 5 minutes. You weren't on the list at the start of the meeting. Excuse me?
Mr. Davis will explain that.
Okay, we'll get to that, but I'm certainly, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
I also, before you start, just, is there anybody else in the room who didn't get their name on the list at the start of the meeting? I'm just trying to balance time for the amount of time that we've set aside for this portion of the meeting. Okay, so Mr. Moher? Okay, let's deal with that point of order first, Madam Clerk, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Moher, I actually have a staff member monitoring the feed. It is working. I've already communicated with the person who's been having computer problems.
Thank you for that. So nobody else is putting their hands up to speak. So Mr. Leahy, you'll be our final speaker in the public comment period, and you have 5 minutes for that.
Thank you. I'm so happy to see so many people here tonight. I've been rolling around on my tractor all day, and bear with me here. It's a great time to think. So here's what I think. Every direction in the world, we're being divided, whether it's war, whether it's Canada, US, whether it's this. And when I look at it, every time, who's causing the division? It's not these people, it's the governments. We have to reclaim what we've lost. Now, April Hope and I have been here, not tonight, but for a year, asking how we can do this better. And on every turn, we've been shot down. Now, there's nobody here that's against a fire hall. That's ridiculous. But we asked, can we scale it down? Can we phase it in? That's not happening. Can we wait till we get some grants? That's not happening. Can you deal with the Edwards fairly? That's not happening. Most importantly, we asked for a public meeting. And if you're wondering if people are interested, here they are. Having a public meeting tonight is useless. You've already made your mind up. I'm convinced this is a done deal. So has there ever been division in Douro before? Absolutely. When I was in grade 10, they built the arena. Now, what was the problem? Some people wanted it built at the park. Some people wanted it built in the village. Some people wanted it where it is. All were valid points. So they had hot meetings. I remember them. And finally, council had to make a decision, and I think they made a good one. But my point is, council had meetings where people could contribute. That didn't happen here. That's a tragedy. So that's all I'm going to say. I do believe that we will take our governments back over, and I'm not criticizing you guys. And what I thought about it today, do you remember a month ago in Buffalo, there was a hockey game and the mic went down, the girl was singing the national anthem. And I didn't realize it at the time, but in Buffalo, they sing the national anthem of Canada at every game because there's so many Canadians there. And the crowd took control and sung it better than we ever have. That's what's going to happen with our governments all over the place. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Okay, let me just get my agenda back in front of me, folks. Okay, so that's it for, thank you, Councillor Watt. That's it for the public comment period. So we are going to move on to staff reports, which is section 7 on the agenda, for those of you who have a copy in front of you. And item 7.1 is the update regarding the Without Prejudice meeting. And I'll hand that over to CAO Davis to give us, run us through that report, please.
Through the mayor to members of council, just this update report is regarding our Without Prejudice meeting that was requested by council on, I believe, early May 5th, sorry, of this year, as a result of the delegation of Richard Taylor. The meeting was held on June 3rd. Happy to report that the meeting was held on June 3rd, sorry, that members of Edward Sand and Gravel, their solicitor and consultants, the Township of Douro-Dummer, it was in attendance with its solicitor and consultants, and the county of Peterborough also participated. Being a Without Prejudice meeting, certainly I'm limited in discussing the content of the meeting, but from the perspective of the Township, we viewed it as a very productive meeting that covered a range of topics, and at its end will result in further dialogues moving towards, I think, we hope, resolution. I believe it could be characterized both by ourselves and all parties in attendance that it was both beneficial and positive. Certainly happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, CAO Davis. Council, any questions on the report that's in front of you as it relates to the Without Prejudice meeting? Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, through the chair. Well, I mean, we wanted to do this to satisfy people before we took the next step. The issues were several issues. So I guess I just want to be confirmed that they are being resolved before we go too much further. I know you said that they were making progress on them, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that they're going to be happy with what's going to go on, with what they know what we want to do. And I just want to make sure that they're going to be happy with whatever's coming out of your meetings.
So the chair to Councillor Johnson, I mean, could characterize a positive meeting. We fully believe that we can reach, based on the items of the day, that we can reach resolution prior to us breaking ground on this project. And keep in mind that there is the first phase, a proposed phase of this work is some design work that's going to take a number of months to accomplish. And we believe that there's enough time in that period to achieve resolution.
Any other questions from council on the report? Seeing nothing, I don't believe there's a recommendation in here, just that it's received for information. Is Councillor Watt, you prepared to make that motion? Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, so now we are moving on to staff report item 7.2, and this is the report on the Joint Public Works Fire Hall Design, Build, Procurement, and CAO Davis, back over to you.
I can appreciate how you're probably tired of hearing my voice. It's been one of the only voices from staff tonight, but happy to speak to that matter. Just a couple of points I want to address prior to talking about this procurement meeting. I asked Chief Pedersen and the manager of Public Works, Mr. Condon, to attend this meeting this evening, both because they've certainly been attached to this project, along with our clerk, Martina, for Deputy CAO / clerk, for the entire duration of this project. Whereas, certainly I'm relatively new to this township, to this work, or to this project itself. And so they're both here and have probably a lot more background information and answers should council have questions of them. Now moving on to this report. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. The procurement report that I brought before you today is for a design build project to replace the current public works facilities and for fire hall in Warsaw. I would like to start by noting that this project has the township amalgamating staff. Just to be clear, are outside workers in public works, not staff from this building. and equipment from 3 separate structures that are all well beyond their life expectancy into one single building. In our asset management plan, these buildings, which have been studied multiple times, are listed as township assets that are in very poor condition and have been considered for replacement for more than a decade. The milestones that I provided in the previous presentation and discussed earlier in the meeting sort of lend ourselves to understand that that is the case. And this report is the result of the procurement process that was initiated on February 23rd, 2026. I appreciate that members of council, the public, are interested in concept designs of the building. And as part of the request for tender project, we provided 3 figures that were concept drawings that had been done in previous iterations of this project. I didn't include them in any of the council materials today because as can be assumed, when people get a look of what was previously designed, they have certain feelings about them. And the fact remains that one of the delegates talked about us giving a list of things that were required. That is what happens in a design build process. We've given them a list of what we absolutely require in the building and asked them to come up. We asked them to initiate in the first stage of this process, the design process. We used figures that were provided and prepared by Greenview, our former consultant on this project, to give concept ideas only to the potential bidders. But I didn't want to muddy the waters and or create confusion in the public space by showcasing drawings of a building that may, in a fashion that it may not, the way that it may not look in the future. I will say that if you look at, as you look through what was presented and what we asked for through that tender process, we asked for some very basic things, enough bays to house the current fire trucks. And just to be clear, last year this council made a decision to purchase 2 new fire trucks that were deemed necessary for the operations of the fire department. And I'm not suggesting that they're not. I believe that they truly are. We do not have a garage in Warsaw large enough or appropriate enough to house one of the fire trucks as they've arrived in our community. And so we have to house them at different places. And they're not in the areas where they need to be so that we can provide the services that we need to provide. Once we get through the design phase, and the other part about that, I think what I'd like to highlight is my commitment to council has always been that if we go down this path of procuring a design build firm to do the work, that we've given them a list of what our requirements are. We recognize that we have some, significant deficiencies in the current buildings within which we're trying to operate out of. And once we go through that design piece, we would return to council. And if it happens prior to the beginning of the fall council schedule, then I would ask the mayor to call another special meeting so that we could present to the public and this council design for what that would look like before we actually break ground on the construction side of this project. The reason that we went this route is because there's a number of opportunities when you use a singular firm to do the entirety of the project to find savings, which is one of the reasons why this project, which was valued at $12 million in 2022, came in at less than that figure that included both design and build features for your decision today. Now to get into the procurement process. The procurement started on February 23rd, 2026. We hosted a non-mandatory bid meeting on site at the Public Works facility on County Road 4, I believe. The bid meeting was attended by over 25 firms that showed interest in the project. We had a large number of questions. We presented a deadline for questions on March 20th. We issued the addenda on March 27th, One of the requests or questions that came in was an ask for an extension by a number of the firms that were serious about bidding on this project. And so after discussions with the project manager, we came to the conclusion that extending the bid period by 2 weeks would result in more interest in our project. And so that's what we did. And so we extended the bid period till April 17th. I would note that we had over 66 plan takers or 66 interested registered businesses that pulled those documents, took a look at them, went through them, and participated in the process. The process culminated on April 17th at 2 p.m. We closed the tender, and we received 10 bids for this project. In my report tonight, I list all of those 10 bids and the total value of the bid of each of those bids. And what you will note is that we have bids as low as $130,000, which were non-compliant because they referenced just a portion of the job, and bids as large as $39 million, which were well beyond what we contemplated. In reviewing the tenders, the following key considerations were identified. The lowest bid of $130,000 was presented by Birchview Excavating, however, it was non-compliant. Nikon Limited was the next lowest bid, however, their project references were not complete, and that bid was deemed non-compliant. And so the third lowest bid in the process was Task Force Engineering. It was the lowest fully compliant bid submission. It referenced projects that were all design build in nature, that were both comparable or larger in scale than the project that we're asking them to take on. In our region, Task Force Engineering has a history of doing quality work. Their largest infrastructure project within this area is a 64,000 square foot community center in Campbellford, Ontario. And I would note that in the subcontractors, so first of all, Task Force Engineering is from Belleville, Ontario, so they're part of they're located in Eastern Ontario. And that their bid in particular features a local firm, Drain Brothers, as one of their subcontractors to do the site works. Township Management, Cambium, reviewed the submitted bids and provided a recommendation that's an attachment to this project, report. And just so you know, the highest, while Task Force received the highest overall score during the evaluation process, this process considered price breakdown, project team and experience, project references, bonding, and bid securities. Staff agree with the suggestion or the recommendation from Cambium and are asking council to consider awarding this project to Task Force Engineering. I want to talk a little bit about, prior to my conclusion, I want to talk very briefly about the finances of this project. So as I stated earlier, when in the 2020s, when we started reevaluating or evaluating what this project was, we came up with a figure of $12 million. And I certainly recognize that we went out, when we went out to market, we were lucky. We had a significant number of bids, but I'm also was also very it was an interesting note to me that all of the bids, we had a number of bids which are in that range between right around the $12 million mark. With taxes, it's anticipated, or HST, it's anticipated that this project will be $11.3 million. And there's lots of questions about how we prepared ourselves financially for this process or this project. And what I would say is, in our funding strategy, when we developed the funding strategy in 2022 as to how we were going to deal with this, what we recognized is that we needed to increase the levy by 1% a year throughout until we got to an annual repayment limit that we felt comfortable was going to be enough to cover the cost of the money that we would need to borrow for this project. I would note that the treasurer for this corporation, Stacy Grenier, has looked at the financial model. She's refined the financial model for us, and I thank her for that. And what we were able to achieve is we recognize that if we were to borrow the dollars that are required to do this project, the annual repayment is estimated at $861,710, which means that we need to get annual contributions to the levy to that amount of money. And certainly that is a substantial ask. However, we've been working on this since 2022. And what I would note is that this year, our annual contribution to reserves for this project from the levy are $657,365. We anticipate that if we add 1% for next year's budget as an increase to that, and then 1% in 2028 when we anticipate construction to be complete, we would have a deficit of just $50,000, and that by 2029 we will have created a funding model that will be enough to sustain the debt repayment requirements to make this project happen. I think that we've come a long way from when we started talking about this project in 2015, and I believe we're in a good spot tonight for you to contemplate and consider awarding this project. What I will say is that I recognize that there isn't anybody in this gallery tonight, and not many people in this community that would suggest that we do not need to update or replace these structures that we are working out of today. I can also appreciate that asking this community to spend near $12 million, just over $11 million on a project of this nature is challenging. And it's challenging because we've never spent this kind of money before. And what I will say is this council spent $1 million of reserves to replace the ice floor at the Douro Community Center this year because they recognize that that is a fundamental facility or a critical facility in our community. And they authorized, we received grant money, some grant money, but they authorized expenditure towards that. And I noted at the time when we we agreed to spend $1 million of our own money on that project. That was the single largest amount of money that we'd ever spent on a project at that time. And so, it's not lost on me that this is 10 times as expensive. However, this community has waited for a very long time to move this project forward. And I believe that it's warranted that we borrow the money to build this facilities in the way that it needs to be built. This is not a bricks. I mean, we would consider it in terms of description a bricks and mortar building, but it is a steel clad building with enough bays. I heard a number today in comments that we had 19 bays. I disagree. I don't believe that we're anticipating 19 bays for this building, and I'm certainly happy for Public Works and Fire to weigh in on the exact number of bays that are required, should council ask for that. And I'm confident and proud of the work that we've done to this point to get us here. My recommendation as part of this report is that we award this project to Task Force Engineering at a cost of $11,116,262. That's my report. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, CAO Davis. Okay, council, this is where we're going to open up the floor for council to ask any questions that they wish of staff, including our treasurer and manager of public works and fire chief, as well as CAO Davis, on the report that's before you. And I see Councillor Johnston, you're lit up, so the floor is
Yeah,
yours.
through the chair. Todd, I don't know that you spelled out exactly what we have in reserve for the right now for this project.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Johnson. I actually anticipated you were going to ask that question, and I didn't want to take it away from you. So the total amount that we've raised, so as I stated earlier, in 2022, we started the process of putting away a dedicated levy increase or levy amount every year into reserves to help support the development of this project. I can say that as of the 2026 budget year, we've put 1.9 million or $1,961,695 into reserves to support the development of this station.
Now, another question is that if we engage task force engineering to engage them for this building, just that the public knows, this is the first step. We have seen no plans. I've been asked all along from different people, you know, like, what's going on? And I said, hey, I haven't seen nothing yet. No plans, no recommendation, no nothing. And so this is the first time we've seen it as council that's came to our table. Saying that, there will be another public meeting when they come down with these plans that they're going to show forward. I guess my question is that if we see in the plans something that we can take out or shorten up or whatever it be, are they willing to work with us to maybe do this and reduce the cost?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, I mean, I haven't had that specific conversation with Task Force Engineering, but I recognize that there is an opportunity, I think, for us to take a look at this. Realistically, what we're trying to, I mean, we've given them a bare bones list of the things that are required in the facility and the building. That was established over a number of years of conversations at this table, quite honestly, about what the requirements were, and that's what made the foundation of this proposal. But certainly, when they come back to us and we present these plans to council, I'm happy to ask that question. But I believe that they have some amiability. They're certainly interested in ensuring that we are seeing value for our money.
And I guess the last thing is maybe we could ask the fire and the roads on how many bays they do need.
Chief?
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, through the chair. So our current fire department right now in Station 4, we have 5 pieces of equipment. One is a trailer, and we're asking for 6 bays. We currently have another trailer that should be at this station that's located in a different location. So we're not really asking for much more than what we have. It does give us, the bay lengths are a bit longer. It does give us the space because we have, again, being central to supporting the other stations, we need extra space for storing hose, or storing our cleaning machines for the hose, and those sorts of things that have to be in those bays as well. So that's my short answer.
Thank you, Chief. And Mr. Condon, do you want to speak on the public workspace? I was gonna say, oh, that mic doesn't work. I'm sorry to drag you all the way up there.
Sure, through the mayor, our current facilities are spread over 2 buildings, 2 different locations. We currently have the equivalent of 9 bays spread over them 2 facilities, one in Douro and one in Warsaw. The new build, I believe, is proposed to have 12 bays. One is a dedicated wash bay. One is a dedicated mechanics bay. And the smaller door, or smaller door bay, will be a parts delivery bay, which in turn results to 10 more, or like we're getting 1 more bay than we currently have. So during the Station 2 remodeling in Douro, we part of that Douro facility, public works facility, was transferred over to the fire department, which we lost 2.5 bays there to the fire department. So we work out of 3 bays over there, and there's 4 full bays in Douro.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Councillor Johnston, additional question?
Yeah, before you sit down, I just want to ask another question there. So you're not planning on taking the trucks from Douro to the new building? Are you?
Through the mayor, yes, that facility we would operate out of the new facility.
Okay, I guess, we've had this discussion before and, I was never in favor of that. I wanted to keep the Douro one mainly because, the area that we got to travel back and forth when we're pretty well, on this going to the west, that we would keep that. So I mean, I'm a little shocked at that. And I guess the other question, which you wouldn't have an answer to it, but will they be moving the fire trucks that are out in Douro there? Uh, from there to, the new building too? That's not your answer, but I'm just wondering about that.
Sure. Thank you for the question through the chair. No, we would not be relocating the Douro fire trucks because they are deployed in a way to help with our insurance ratings for all the residents. So we can't close that station, or we shouldn't close that station, to help support the response time and the insurance savings that we have with our tanker shuttle accreditation.
Well, in that case, would there be bays for some more fire equipment in Douro? If the parks are going to leave, or the roads is going to leave?
Yeah. So through the chair again to Councillor Johnson. So part of the reason why we were able to do the renovation project at Douro was because the building that we're repurposing was meeting the post-disaster requirements. The newer addition that was put on that facility, very difficult to make it become a fire station with the construction methods that were used at that time. So for a fire station, it has to be under the building code, a post-disaster building. So that would be very difficult to achieve that with that particular building. It could be used for storage for other things, but not frontline fire trucks.
Counselor? You're done with your questions? Awesome, thank you. Mr. Fine, you're welcome to sit down, but I have a feeling that you might get called back up to Counselor Watt next with questions.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Short and sweet, just a couple of things. Jake or Chuck, whichever one wants to answer. So Jake, you said 10 bays. Now, when you say 10 bays, are you counting like 2 trucks back to back as 2 bays? Like it'd just be 1 drive-through, so there's actually 5 drive-throughs, but there's going to be spots for 10 trucks?
Through the mayor, yes, so there'd be 12 doors, if you will. So there'd be 6 doors on each side.
Thank you. Yeah, because that's a confusion. When somebody said to me, oh, there's 19 bays, that building's going to be so long, it's crazy. Well, it's not really 19. It's 1 front, 1 back is 1 bay, and then front back. So if you say there's 6, there's only really 6 throughs, 12 spots for trucks, which is fine. My next thing is more of a comment than a question, but it just stems back to quite a ways back when these buildings were coming up. And we had some preliminary plans and so on, and it relates to the cost, because one of the first things we got, and of course, everything was going green back then, and you had to have all these different bells and whistles, as people call it, thrown in to make this a green building and all the stuff like that. That was a $20 million project to go with that green. So this is a little over half of that, eliminating all that. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you, Counselor Watt. Deputy Mayor Nelson with questions, please.
Thank you. Jake, maybe you could elaborate on also the graders. Give us a price on a new grader, and if you have a roundabout figure on that. And these graders have been sitting out. Every grader, as former manager of Public Works, I can tell you that these graders and the equipment that does sit outside has a substantial cost on the municipality. I just look at the hoses, and a previous comment was said about drainage trucks. You can't compare a snowplow to drainage trucks. There is 3 different pumps on them, and anyways, maybe you can just elaborate on how much hoses and just what the cold affects these trucks for getting them out, We cannot compare ourselves to the city of Peterborough. They have full-time mechanics. We don't have full-time mechanics. These trucks, before they go out the door, have to be inspected and gone over. I personally have witnessed trucks in the shop that is up now. On a Friday night, they would come back in, we would have a heavy week. And I personally come back in on Monday morning and you cannot inspect the truck properly because of the ice and the buildup that's underneath the trucks to do a proper circle check on what we need to do for the government. So I look for your comments on that, Jake.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I can speak on the cost for a grader now is around $550,000. One plow truck is 385. We have 7 plow trucks. We have 2 graders. All the equipment we have runs off of is highly dependent on hydraulics. And hydraulics move very slow or not at all in minus 30-degree weather. So the township currently operates approximately 24 major pieces of equipment, including vehicles, with a total value of approximately $5 million. These assets are used at in the worst environments. So they're beat up, they're worse. We're out there in the worst days trying to maintain the roads. And like the deputy mayor had mentioned, and some of the comments from the fire department we're lucky in the dead of winter to reach 58 degrees in the building we have right now. I've seen it, Harold, longer than a weekend. The ice just, if we don't wash them off with, spend some serious time washing them off, they would never melt off over the course of the winter in the building. We have, much like the fire department, we have our own little rivers that flow through our lunchroom, our bathroom, and our office area whenever it rains in the spring of the year. I don't want to get into this too much. I'll just answer the question. I hope that answered it, but there is some another one of the essential assets that we do house in the Public Works Department is the backup generator that powers the municipal building during a power outages. So without that generator being available in a warm environment to be able to be brought down here and hooked up as soon as possible, well, you won't be running business here. So anyway, that's just my comments. I hope I didn't go on too long, but I'm happy to answer anything else.
Thanks very much for your comments, Jake. Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions of council? Councillor Landsman, sorry to point, I shouldn't have done that.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. To people who came out tonight, I think that was terrific that you're taking the interest and stepping out, and I'm hopeful that you learned a lot from what was being said. I know I learned from every report. And that's all I really had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the non-question question. Okay, seeing no further questions from council, I've got a list of questions, and we'll start with our fire chief and public works manager, but our treasurer, I'm going to put you on notice because I've got questions for you as well. So gentlemen, I know inherently that the two of you have been working together and having these meetings to identify what the requirements are for a facility, how many bays are needed, and what type of apparatus and equipment needs to be housed. I mean, I'm hearing tonight and from the community that we support the facility as a group. It's just, is it being over scoped, over engineered? You know, we've already had conversations around the number of bays and the amount of equipment. But you know, are we planning for a future, and how far into the future need? And I believe, you know, there was a comment early this evening about, you know, what is what I would call the total cost of ownership, you know, once we have a facility, assuming, you know, should council move forward with something, you know, are we buying new fire trucks? I know we just purchased new fire trucks, I believe are replacement trucks. You know, what else are we going to be looking at from a long-term cost? I don't mean like the heat and hydro and operational costs, but other infrastructure, capital infrastructure would be required should council proceed with this. So I know it's a big question, but you know, are we overbuilding it at the crux of it? And what other infrastructure will we need if it is built? Chief, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I guess just a little bit of background on this project. So I started here in 2013. At that time, the previous fire chief and Harold were actually already had a plan done, didn't involve consultants or a firm at that time. So that project was already kind of, you know, the wheels were already turning and looking at the needs analysis from an internals perspective. Shortly after I got here in the direction, I can't remember if it was just the CAO or to bring it to council or what exactly it's been a while. But we got busy working on, you know, refreshing that and then getting direction for a shovel-ready project. There was talk at that time, I believe Harold can correct me, sorry, counselor or deputy, Nelson, old habits. He can correct me, but I believe that he brought forward all the different plow routes from changing the direction from being out of 2 buildings to 1 building at that time. So that was analyzed. When I brought forward the project to repurpose the Douro Public Works to become Douro Fire Station, that was under the, like, I guess I'm saying that everything that I've been working on for the past 10 years is with anticipation and understanding that this building was coming. So, you know, we took that project on, and I say that for the people that are in this room, especially on the backs of the volunteers that stepped up and took that project on. Our Station 5 up by White Lake and Stony Lake, we took that project on the back of the volunteers. And I'm not trying to, I still want to answer your question, but you know, all these things that we did at those time was because, you know, we're not, it's costly when we talk about decontamination of equipment and safe workplaces and shower facilities and hose washing and bunker gear decontamination, all these things that are driven to us that we don't have a choice on. We shouldn't have a choice, but we actually don't. You know, it would look differently if the flavor was, we're not going to be getting this station anytime in the near future. So we need to make sure that every station can independently support itself. So I believe that we've done this planning over the 10 years in anticipation that I never thought we would still be here 10 years later. You know, and the needs were recognized in 2016 as the health and safety concerns and report at that time. You know, so when we look at like the space that we require today, we're not asking, like originally when we talked about this refresh building, we actually had 1 additional drive-through bay, which would be 2 bays deep, as potential for future growth, because we want to build things for the future, not for today. But you know, we looked at that and said, well, we gotta trim it somewhere. So I think like we had a net zero building, you know, in the first proposal at $3 million, and we were looking for the third funding that just prior to those proposals was common. It then ended. We took all the net zero out of it because we got 100% scores on those funding, but we got $0. Then we went to, you know, to where we're at now, where we went to the middle section at 5 or 6 million or whatever it was, as a not net zero building. So, you know, we've arrived where we are. I don't think that this building that we're asking for I'm not going to speak to Jake's side of the building, but we have a shared middle section that has some shared space in it. There's certain things that we have to have private locked up because of privacy issues that can't be open to anybody else. But we have a shared training room if they need it. We have a shared kitchen, so there's efficiencies and all that. This is what we proposed. And from as far as the bays go, I don't think 6 is. I already think we've narrowed that down to as much as we can. And sorry, maybe I did just get distracted down a rabbit hole from your question.
Except for the bays, how are you sizing the project ultimately? Are we over scoping it or
Right, over scoping it. I knew there was a reason I was going down this. Thank you for the redirection. So for the bays that are there, I think that we've already scaled down to marginal room for any growth. We have the ability with 6 bays, maybe we can, right now we have obviously way less space, but we can't walk between anything. We have, it doesn't meet any of the codes. We don't have the exit pass that we're supposed to have. They're trying to inspect equipment that they can't, there's no space to open compartment doors because you're into walls. So it would be comfortable to do the job that we're doing now. If we had to grow for whatever reason and had to add more equipment, we're not asking for any more equipment in the fire truck bays. We just want to be able to put the things that we have where they belong. As you mentioned, we just purchased 2 fire trucks that were as a 2-year project to get them made. And at that time, I advised council, I said, these are the trucks that we believe is the future because they have to be here for 20 years. And I said, these won't fit in either Warsaw or Donwood. That's where they need to go. But we can play Tetris with trucks if we know that there's commitment to fixing them. And the answer was order the trucks. So all these different things that we've done that I've tried to orchestrate to get here is in anticipation of this being something that can support as a central station to all of our stations, or all these other renovation projects that we did would look differently than they are now if this was never going to happen. So that would be unfortunate if that is the case. And as far as as far as the training room, I've heard about comments about it's the Taj Mahal and all these things. I mean, we're talking about a rectangle. There's nothing fancy about a rectangle. And the training room is 60, has a capacity of 60 people. We have over 65 firefighters. The last 10 years, we've went from 42 to 65 firefighters. So if you're trying to plan for the future, there's still marginal there, and that's tight at 60. Once you bring in some training props, you're losing a row of seats. So I don't think that is, 25 years ago, or even, maybe as early as 25 years ago, the fire department, volunteer fire department, was very different than it is today. There was a social aspect, club aspect to it, that you showed up and you did your best with what you had, and it was great. Dedication was high, but we didn't have legislation that said you have to be certified and here's all the courses that you have to do. The things that we're asking our volunteers to do and the facilities that we need to deliver those things are so much different than the building that we currently have. We put new tables, training tables in our space because we have a space. So yeah, maybe there's a few more tables that have to be added, but we're not asking to outfit the whole classroom. We have electronic smart screens that we can move over to the new facility. We're not asking for new apparatus. A lot of the cancer prevention stuff we've got through provincial grants in the last 2 years. That's part of the strategy, is that we can't even fit that stuff where it needs to be now. But the anticipation again is that it will be in the new station that we hope is coming. So hope that answers your question from my side.
Thank you. Yes. You reminded me about the classroom, though. I know historically you and I had a conversation. I can't remember whether it was in a budget or conversation in the council chambers or just separately about the size of the classroom. And I remember thinking to myself and saying, why, 60 people in a room, the township owns facilities. Why can't we do training at the Warsaw Arena upstairs or the Douro Community Center? And you had an answer for me, and it was, I remember thinking, oh, that makes sense. Can you remind me what that is, please?
Sure, thank you. I don't exactly remember what I said at that time, but there's the response side of things as well. So when we have to do rehab and refreshments, and you need a space for those people to go back. If we have these emergencies that we've faced the last few years, you need a space to be able to go back and rehab and refresh and reset. You have to have potential training rooms. We talked about that, potentially being our emergency management is the town hall right now that doesn't really have any technology in it. So there was conversations whether that would become part of that space. And really it's a place, like, part of your recruitment and retention is the firefighters they are their second family. If we start spreading them all over the place and they're not where their equipment is, or if we're doing training and we have to relocate things and then we have calls, like, we always think about training is important, but response is the highest importance. So I don't know if that fully answers what I said before, but I think those are some key points off the top of my head that I could share tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Condon, you've been standing there. I asked the question of both of you. Do you want to add anything on the public works side of things in terms of scope, size, and how it's all come together?
Through the mayor, I would just echo some of the chief's comments that the previous manager has also been planning with the idea that this building was going to be built. So we gave up some of our facilities, recognizing that this facility would be in the future. Are we building for the future? I would hope so. Municipal buildings are long-term assets, and they should be built to serve the community for 50+ years. Are we overbuilding it? I don't believe so. We have a lot of equipment, a lot of expensive equipment. And a lot of these facilities that we have are also shared. Some of the off-season storage is shared throughout departments at their different facilities, right? We share some of our space for the public or the parks and recreation equipment. Sometimes the fire department with the new truck that was delivered needed a space for a few days. So I don't believe we're overbuilding it. I believe it's long overdue. And yeah, that's my comments.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Grenier. Oh, did you want to piggyback on that? Because I'm still on my questions. Okay, Ms. Grenier, I want to talk to you a little bit about the finances here. I know we've already had CIO Davis has given us some overview in the report and in his commentary around the report. One of the comments that came up earlier this evening multiple times was just around the up-to-date financials, and this council's well aware it's something that that I've been passionate about, to ensure that we have up-to-date financials. More recently brought forward a notice of motion to put together a plan for getting the audits caught up to date. I believe there was just a report on the agenda last week. Was it just last week? With the update on the 2024 financials. I'm wondering if you, and I know you're new in the role, but if you can kind of speak to the history and where we may be in terms of being behind on those. And I know we have a plan for 2024 and you're providing monthly reporting on that. What does the 2025 audited financial statement timeline look like? Because up until this point, frankly, I have been told by former staff, not sitting here this evening, that they're kind of happening in tandem. I was told that about 22 and 3 and 3 and 4, and are we doing that in tandem? Because if we were doing 2024 in tandem at the same time, like while we were doing 2023, then we shouldn't be here at this point. So what does the future look like for ensuring that we have our audited financials up to date?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right now we are working on the 2024. We're on target for the August 4th. That's our planned financial report presentation from the auditor. Now, in my report at the last meeting, I stated that we have submitted all the information that they have required in order to start moving forward with their work. They're still waiting for some answers to some questions, but those are more just to finalize their audit. They don't, they're not related to the core numbers that they need to work on. We did receive some correspondence this week, so they have started looking at what we have supplied. So that's where we are in 2024. For 2025, our deadline to get the preliminary information in is June 29th, and our audit visit is scheduled, our first audit visit is scheduled for July, so the week of July 6th. And as far as historically, I'm not sure I can speak to that. I know looking back, because I did an analysis on the audits, it looks like we did 2 or 3 years in 2024 and 2 or 3 years in 2025 to catch up because of some previous, I don't know, health issues with the previous treasurer.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I am interested, I'm happy to hear that, you know, I knew 2024 is on track from your report last week. But I'm happy to hear that 2025 is also, we've got those dates already booked in the calendar for that first audit visit and the deadline to get information forward. One of the questions that came up, and frankly, I just don't know the answer, and Ms. Grenier, I don't know if this is a question for you or perhaps CAO Davis, about our ability, given the fact that our audited financials have not been submitted for 2024, much less 2025, can we enter into a contract of this nature? You know, will we have any challenges on a broad scope around this, and what, you know, is our authority to be able to do so compromised?
Thank you, Mayor. The answer is, it's a simple answer. It's no, we can move forward with this contract.
Okay, thank you. CEO Davis, do you want to add something? You were like hand on the button.
No, I'm just supporting the treasurer, but absolutely, I agree with the treasurer. We are, there's nothing that constrains us from entering into this contract based on our current financial situation. Even borrowing, we're entitled to borrow, regardless of what our financial situation. I mean, we have our constraints to borrowing are based on our average repayment limit, and if we don't have an up-to-date FIR, which would dictate our actual financials and our repayment limit, then we revert to the last submitted FIR to determine which our ARL is, or repayment limit is, and that's what constrains the ability to borrow. So I don't know what that number is currently, but I'm pretty certain that it's in the neighborhood of $3 million is what our annual repayment limit is, and we don't have any debt at this stage.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the ARL, because I think, you know, as this is a term that we don't necessarily see as, you know, typical borrowers as homeowners, right? On the municipal side. So when I hear the term ARL, I can never recall what that actual acronym stands for, but to me, that's your debt to asset ratio effectively. You know, what are your mortgage payments you're allowed to borrow according to the government as opposed to according to the bank. Is that, do you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The ARL stands for annual repayment limit, and it is calculated on the FIR every year. It is based on it's the revenue that we generate that's not government related. So it's mostly just based on our revenue. It's a revenue stream.
Okay, so again, I am trying to turn this into human speak. FIR is financial information return,
Yeah.
which is linked to our audit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Our annual audit. So we submit the audit, then the FIR goes into the province, and the province then sets what that annual repayment limit, or ARL, is. As far as the township, this specific township is concerned, we haven't touched that limit because we have zero debt currently. Everything that we've purchased to date is kind of on a cash-based system, correct, CEO?
And just to maybe make it less financial to speak, because that's not me. So you're correct. When you borrow money for a mortgage, say you mortgage your house or you borrow money for something, you have to have something as collateral, often collateral, right? So when you borrow for a house, you have the house as collateral. If you don't make your payments, the bank comes and takes your house from you. We don't put, in the municipal context, we don't put physical assets up as collateral because we don't typically borrow from traditional borrowing places. The province of Ontario wants us to borrow from them. And they say to us, we don't want your building if you don't pay us back. What they want is an assurance that we have an ability to pay. And so that is predicated on how much money we earn in revenue or that we get in revenue through our tax levy. That's what dictates our ability to pay. And that's why they set what they call an annual repayment levy limit, because they don't sort of say, they don't value this building and say this building is worth X millions of dollars and so we can borrow against it. We're actually borrowing against our ability to collect revenue. If that makes, maybe that makes,
So I
hopefully that makes sense.
appreciate you simplifying it. I know, like I say, I see it often come up in reports and financial reports, but I think it's often, municipal financing is different than what we're all used to as homeowners and citizens just trying to pay our bills and make rent, so to speak, right? So, okay, I am done with my questions. Councillor Johnston, did you have an additional question?
Yeah, to the chair. I guess two things. One is that what are we going to do with the other buildings that we're going to be eliminating, like the roads department building, and then the fire hall, the old fire hall there that we're hopefully going to get out of there soon. Have you got any comment on that, Todd? And the other thing is I'd like to mention or say is that the company that we're looking at, this task force in engineering, maybe you could tell the public that they're going to be possibly using some of our local people on the construction.
Through the mayor, Councillor Johnson. So certainly, we have to, there'll be some considerations as we, I mean, I guess it's dependent on whether this project moves forward or not, right? So, should this project move forward, what we would have done, so there's three structures. One of the structures is a steel storage shed that is actually sited very close to where we're going to build, or where we propose to build the new structure. Part of the request for tender process contemplated what would be done with that building, how much it would cost to take it apart and sell it, or whether it was more cost effective just to take it down. So that's one, like it's like a storage shed. The Public Works building, I think really realistically, we're looking at using it initially as cold storage, but will reevaluate what that building or what that structure is requirement. The challenge we have with the structure is it's in the middle of the site of the current Public Works site that we have. And so it's not just so easy to sell that building off or the land in around that building. We would have to reevaluate that at a later date. But most importantly, I want to highlight the fire hall in Warsaw, which is the most saleable. I don't think that's the right word. Saleable of those assets. So that is its own piece of property. The goal would be as we got closer to construction or the completion of construction, we would engage council in a conversation about what you wanted us to do with that. Surplus it and sell it is certainly an option. We would have it, we might have it appraised to see what its value is, and then have a conversation with council. Can we sell it and use those proceeds to pay down some of the debt that we would take on to build the fire station?
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. I was gonna say, I thought there was another.
There was a second question. I'm sorry, I apologize. So as I did reference in the report and my comments on this report tonight, Task Force's project involved, so their proposal involved a series of sub-trades. Some of them are from Eastern Ontario, but one of them is a local firm. They indicated that they would be using Drain Brothers, local business, to do their site work.
We're not taking questions from the floor during this point. Thank you. Council, any other questions of staff on the report that's before you? Deputy Mayor? Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one more comment here. From, as Chuck had said, I've been involved in this project since day one, which goes back to probably 2 years prior to Chuck coming, which he said it was 2013. So me and the former chief started out with this project. And this has been a long, long project, let me tell you, for to see from the needs, and believe me, as a former manager and with Chuck as well, and the former fire chief, it's very easy to I guess condemn, but I can honestly tell you, when I first started at the township, I thought it was horrific or unbelievable that we only have enough water at a facility that workers work at for to flush the toilet once. And if you got to go, somebody has to go the second time, well, you might have to wait a half an hour before you flush. So let me tell you, that's some of the conditions that our people work in. And that's still that same way today. When we went and purchased the property, I think it's important that this information gets out there. When we went and purchased the property for to do the new facility, with council's permission, I went and I dug a well, and anyways, we got well over 25 gallons a minute, and that well is still sitting there, ready to house the new facility. So we don't have to worry about supply of water for our new building. That has already been looked after, and anyways, we done that through drains and in-house. We put that well in, and we have a good well on site. So, well, no, there was plans. The plans actually, sorry.
Please just focus your
sorry.
comments
Oh,
to the council and through the chair.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, so having said that, I've been involved in this, and if not now, when? Because I don't know where we're going to put fire trucks, and to be honest with you, I don't know where we're going to house people, because it isn't very good. The working conditions, I don't think any of yous in this audience would go and work under the conditions that some of our people work under. So I'm just putting it at that, and
Deputy Mayor.
I'll leave it there.
Are you looking to make a motion?
Pardon
Folks,
me?
order, please.
I would love to make the motion that we accept this bid and move forward with this project.
So just to be clear, to move the recommendation, I'm just going to read it out. So all council is aware that the report CAO 2026-18 dated June 11th regarding an update on, oh, that's the wrong one. Folks, please.
Quiet out there, you have to leave.
Okay, so the recommendation, Deputy Mayor, sorry, I had the wrong one in front of me, that the report CAO 2026-19 dated June 11, 2026 regarding the Public Works Fire Hall design, build, procurement be received, and that Task Force Engineering be awarded to the tender to design and build the proposed new Public Works Fire Hall facility in the Township of Douro-Dummer. That is your motion? Okay.
Most certainly, as Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, council, does anyone want to second that motion? Councillor Watt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now I see Councillor Johnson, you're jumping on the mic. So now we're done with taking questions from each other unless it's for clarification on the motion or procedural. Now we're just speaking to the motion that's on the floor, please. Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, thank you to the chair. I think once again, I need Todd to explain what this really means. Like the comment, like I haven't seen no plans because there is no plans that we physically see right now. But part of the project is that we engage them, then they come back with the plans. Okay, then we have to see with a public meeting to see what they're going to be doing. Now, you might want to explain that a little bit better, Todd. But the bottom line is, yes, we haven't seen no plans because there's no plans. But that doesn't mean that they bid it on a plan, that they've got what they want. They know what we wanted. Now they give a price on for what they're doing, and then we'll be seeing the plan. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But right now, the next step is to get them on board, putting the plan together and bring it to council. Is that right, Todd?
Okay, so for the purpose of clarifying the motion, because we've got a motion on the floor and right now it's up to us to debate that motion, right? So we've had an opportunity to ask questions. But for the point of clarifying, please, CEO Davis, can you clarify and confirm that timeline?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, so I can clarify what a design build means. The concept of design build means that we hire one firm to do the design and build at this in one sort of shot, right? So the reality is we've asked, we're with you today with this project that gives you the opportunity to hire one firm who will design this project and build it out. But I want to be very clear. Because you've made a couple of statements this evening about that you've never seen plans for this building. We have original plans that have been done, a number of sets, I believe, over the years. And this project is based foundationally on those designs. That's what we used as concept ideas that we provided to the potential bidders. But they will come back with a set of drawings and we will, I'm committed to present them to this council so they can see what it looks like before we move forward with the next stage of this process.
Thank you. Okay, so does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Seeing nothing over there. No comments on the motion at all? Okay, well, I'll take a moment then to speak to it before I call the vote. This is something that, is of great significance to council, to this community, to the members who are sitting here, and those who might be watching online, and just regular citizens who perhaps aren't even aware that this is happening. I want to stress, I have the absolute confidence in our financial plan on this. I know that there's been some questions raised and Ms. Grenier answered some of those today, but we have zero municipal debt today. And this being our first borrowing, knowing that our debt to asset capacity, or a debt capacity ratio, or ARL, thank you, is very healthy. We can afford this. We have put away, $1.9 million roughly over the last few years. And through that commitment of funding that we made in 2022 to add 1% to the levy specifically for this project will get us to the point where we'll be able to do that. And I want to be clear on that. I want to be clear on what 1% means. And I didn't want to spring this on our treasurer this evening. I did some quick research while we were chatting, having these conversations. A 4.3% increase in the levy, which was what this council passed for a 2026 budget, with the median or average assessment value is $53.58 a year on your tax bill. I'm not saying that we should be, taking more and more and more, but 1% of that is even less. And I didn't math that out. And like I say, I didn't want to go down that path with our treasurer on the fly. And this is an investment of 30 to 50 years. No different than when we are, as first-time home buyers or planning a purchase of a vehicle. This is something that you're looking at the financing of it and expecting it to last you for many years down the road, as our current facilities have served us. The current fire hall facility was built as a school, and I meant to drive by to see the date on the front, but I know it was a very, very long time ago, and it doesn't meet our current standards, and it's frankly not fair to the people who are working in that facility to try and do their work in constrained facilities that, as we've heard this evening, don't meet fundamental health and safety needs, much less just operational challenges. We also heard this evening that every neighboring municipality around us has invested in modern facilities except for us. And it's time to catch up. Again, it's paramount that our workers, our volunteers can do their job and serve the community from a public safety standpoint and their own personal health and safety. But let's also talk a little bit about community pride. And when I ran for mayor 4 years ago, I knocked on doors, I talked to taxpayers, and they said, we don't mind paying more in taxes as long as we're getting more facilities and more investment of that money. And like that's fundamental. And the low taxes over the last many years and fiscal discipline has given us the room so that we can invest in a facility such as this. That's not mismanagement. That is strategic planning that's happened over multiple councils. As far as the transparency piece, I believe, you know, I recognize the comments that one of the speakers made about not being able to find the information on our website. And I think that this, among other things, are a little difficult to find on the website. And I agree wholeheartedly. And we have some work to do on that to make sure that our information is more available to people. But it has been part of our budget conversation every single year since this term of council and many years prior. And it's been, I believe, 30 times referenced in prior meetings over time. I heard concerns about the total cost of ownership. You know, what's the future cost of this building? You know, we can't. This tender for the cost of building it, we all know, I'm assuming we all know, I recognize fully that assuming it comes in on time and on budget, and that's a broad assumption. I respect that. Assuming it does, there's going to be additional cost. There's going to be the cost of trying to determine what do we do with the old facilities and costs in terms of how we're going to manage that on a going forward basis. And I would hope, and a good comment came forward in one of our more recent meetings, that there is a fundraising component to this. I know firsthand, and Chief mentioned this, you know, it was our volunteers who helped us with the station upgrades in Douro, the volunteer firefighters who fundraised and did the work, put in the sweat equity. Same thing with Station 5 up at White Lake. There was a volunteer firefighter effort to do those additions. And boy, oh boy, I can say personally, am I ever grateful for the work that they've done to be able to do that. And so thank you for, if any of you are in this room or watching online. This is necessary work, and there's going to be, you know, additional fundraising capacity. I'm sure, as Chief has mentioned, you know, we can move certain things into that facility that we already have. But I'm hopeful and optimistic that our fire department members and the broader community will help with fundraising for future additions. So we will have additional costs. I'm not ignorant to that. I recognize that fully. And there may be unforeseen costs, and we've budgeted for contingency, and we're managing this as responsibly as we can. And to wrap it up, previous councils, I have much respect for anyone who has served in the generations and terms before us. Their decisions has got us to this point. And we can't undo that. We can't change the decisions that were made historically by previous councils. But what we can do is move forward responsibly with the information that we have now. And we have the capacity to do it. We've done our homework. The numbers are supporting this moving forward. So we need to build something that this community is proud of. And we need to, as one of our presenters said, answer the call and serve our members, our workforce properly. So on that, council, we have a motion that's on the floor that's been made and duly seconded. So I will now call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving down our agenda, we are on item number 8, which is the confirming bylaw. Just a motion on that. Councillor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? That motion carries. And then a motion to adjourn. Councillor Landsman and Councillor Watt, all in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.